Hello guys and welcome back to Deck Doctor. This time we're going to cover Yellow Rush, and this is the deck list that took me to God rank this season, and it was created by King Dans from Team Equilibrium, one of the most consistent and powerful players in the game. So yeah, this is just straight up aggro deck. It's a little trickier than most aggro decks because it has some mobility tools, but we'll go through them as we go through the cards. So let's start off by looking at the deck and talk about each card. So as usual, we're going to kick things off with the creature cards. So let's take a look at the first creature, which is Wind Soldier. Wind Soldier is a removal card which we've seen feature in a lot of yellow decks. It can collect as it kills something. So one thing I've mentioned in some of my past videos is setting up deserts on your wells is usually a good idea. A bit different in Yellow Rush because you're trying to be aggressive, but these guys can collect and get a discount, and they also act as removal. Deathwish Ghoul, just a free one for free Faeria, get a refund of 2 Faeria back, so just a cheap creature that put pressure on your opponent, and you get rewarded from its dying with some additional Faeria to use in your following turn. Shaitan Demon, free Faeria, 5/4. That is crazy stat line for a free cost, and has a production ability to deal 2 damage to yourself. Now, in most matchups, this won't even matter because you're going to be the aggressor. They're going to want to try and remove the Shaitan Demon. So the only matchup that this might prove to be a problem is against maybe Burn, because you're kind of burning yourself. But overall, this card doesn't have any major downfalls. It just has a great 5/4 body, which is going to help you put on a lot of pressure. June Drake, one of the key cards in this deck, one of the cards you want to find in your Mulligan, which I'll talk about later, has a lot of mobility. He only costs 1 desert, so it's really easy to get out. You can like double neutral on your first turn, and desert on your second turn, and June Drake, and your June Drake is able to hit face on turn 3. So that's really important. And yeah, so he's just a great creature, one of the best aggressive creatures in the game. Last but not least, Kaleem. Kaleem started to feature in Yellow Rush a little later on in Yellow Rush's life, but it fits into this style of the Yellow Rush, which has a lot of mobility with the June Drake and the fly and the charge too. Develops followers for you when he hits, so just puts on more pressure. Just an all-round great legendary, which we've discussed many a times. So let's look at the Haste creatures, and these guys are going to be putting on enormous pressure, but also doing other effects as well. So the next 2 creatures are the guys who are going to probably net you real damage against your opponent's orb, because they have haste, so they can attack on the turn they played. And as you can see, you can see in the stat lines they're quite weak, but they're quite cheap as well. And just dealing 2 damage to the god is what you want to do, because it's going to buff up your finisher, which is the Zealous Crusader. Kaleem's followers, just a very simple 2 damage against gods. Not very good fighting on board, but they're used to just push damage and activate event cards on your finisher. Origin Monk is one of the better of the 2. 2 Faeria more, but he does have an attack stat, which is great. But also he draws you a card. So this is a card which will get you back into the game if you're feeling your hands a bit starved, and it also does damage as well. So let's take a look at the event cards in this deck. So there are not many event cards in this deck. There's only 3 types, but there's 3 of each, so there's 9 altogether, so it's a pretty decent amount. And we have Flash Wind as our first one. Now, Flash Wind is really important because it allows you to move your creatures around on the board and dodge taunts, move your creatures into spots to find lethal, and you'll find Flash Wind is one of the easiest ways to get June Drakes and Kaleem into aggressive positions, and we'll talk about that a little bit later as well in the land placement segment. Kaleem's Prayer, gain 2 Faeria and draw a card. Only play if you attacked a god this turn. You can only pray once per turn. So this card synergizes excellently with the haste creatures we just talked about, but you can also use this of any creature that able to swing face, and this is what gains you Faeria with this deck. This is what gives you economy, and it also gives you card advantage. So this is a really important card in the deck, which is impossible not to include in any variation of Yellow Rush. It features across all of them. Last but not least, we have Soul Drain, which is just 2 damage, drain life. The life is not too important most of the time. It's just a way for you to remove Faeria Gatherers, stuff that's in your way, help Wind Soldier maybe take something down. So it's just some damage-based removal the deck uses to try and finish off their opponent as fast as possible. And all these cards, I believe, feature in Yellow Archers. So if you see my Yellow Archers video, you'll be quite familiar with these event cards. So last but not least, let's move on to the finisher of this deck. So Zealous Crusader is an absolute monster if you get him going. As you can see, he has Charge 2, 5 Faeria, 2 Deserts, gain +2/+2 each time you attack a god while he's in your deck or hand. So this is what brings the deck together. All your haste creatures hit in face, your aggressive bodies squeezing some face hits in as well. And eventually this guy will get out of control. Now, even as a 6/6, so just hit in face twice, it's not bad for 5 Faeria. But these guys can grow up to like 14/14s, 20/20s, you know, these guys can get really out of control. So Zealous Crusader is a great finisher in this deck. It's very powerful and it can snowball very easily, and it can be very difficult for your opponent to deal with if they don't have hard removal or they don't have defenses prepared to face it. So let's take a look at the Mulligan. So the Mulligan's pretty simple. These are the 3 cards you're looking for. Shaitan Demon, just like I said, a great body, very aggressive. You can place it down pretty early on with 2 Deserts. And yeah, you just want that stat line straight up in their grill, and they're going to have to deal with that. But most importantly are the other 2 cards. These are like the main cards you want in your Mulligan. So if I will keep Shaitan Demon most of the time, but if I don't see any of these 2, I'll throw the rest away. We have June Drake and Kaleem. So these guys give you a lot of reach. That's the main important thing about them. June Drake, if you're on the Explore, you can Desert in your Orb, play Explore, and play June Drake. Now that's only good if you have the card which I featured down the bottom, which is Flash Wind, because that means the next turn you can hit face. You can go 2 up, Flash Wind, 2 up, and hit face. So it just shows how powerful Flash Wind is in this deck. With Kaleem, Kaleem will dictate how you open your lands. Your land opening is going to be very different based on which cards you have in your Mulligan. I'm going to go through that in the land placement. But Kaleem with Flash Wind is excellent as well. You can play him on your 2nd turn. You can move him over to collect on your 3rd turn, and then on your 4th turn, you can move up to double collect and then Flash Wind to your opponent's orb. But I'll cover this more in the land placement, which we'll be moving on to next. So let's take a look at land placement. Now, land placement Yellow Rush is very much based on your hand. Your hand will dictate your land placement. So there are 3 predicaments you can be in with your opening hand. First one is you have neither Kaleem or June Drake. Second one, you have Kaleem. Third one, you have June Drake. So let's start off with a hand without June Drake or Kaleem. So what you want to do is you just want to pump neutral lands up the middle. And you're most likely going to have a hand of something like Shaitan Demon, maybe Kaleem's Follower, maybe a Origin Monk. And you want to be placing aggressive deserts as quickly as possible. And these are the desert spots you're going to be wanting after you get that aggressive land up there. And the ones on the sides of your opponent's orb, as you can see, they're on the well spots. And the great thing about this is if you play Kaleem's Followers or Origin Monks, you can collect Faeria as you go in to hit their face. So they are great spots to have because it gives you a bit of Faeria as well. So let's take a look at June Drake now. So June Drake is a little different. With June Drake, what you want to do is double neutral to start off with. And then on your 2nd turn, you want to play a desert instead of the other 2 double neutrals. And the reason is, at this point, you can play June Drake straight away. And June Drake will be able to attack next turn. So this is just a great setup for June Drake because it will allow you to get face damage, or it'll force your opponent to play very defensively. And then you can outmaneuver him or whatever you need to do to get that face hit. Lastly is Kaleem. So if you have Kaleem in your opening hand, what you want to do is do a desert up front and then a desert straight on top of it, and then play Kaleem on your desert next to your orb. And then Kaleem can zip around the sides of the board and collect Faeria as he makes his way to your opponent. Once you've developed these 2 lands, you can start placing neutrals up, or you can start drawing cards. So another thing to consider with this deck as well, I know we talked about land placement, but this is also coming off the power wheel. Once you have enough aggressive lands to put pressure on, so I would say most of the cases 2 aggressive deserts near your opponent's orb is enough. You want to start drawing cards, and now this is really important because drawing cards is going to allow you to find your Khalim's Prayer, which is your economy card, which is going to give you Faeria, but also get you closer to either haste creatures or the Zealous Crusader to finish off your opponent. So that's very important to consider as well. You need to draw cards to make sure you don't run out of steam. And when you get these 2 to 3 aggressive desert setup, be sure to start doing that. So that wraps up this episode of Deck Doctor covering Yellow Rush. Now, I didn't mention a budget list, and simply because the only thing you need to do to make a budget variation of this deck is to take out Khalim and add in another Zealous Crusader. You can't get rid of Khalim's Prayer, it's just too important, unfortunately. But the rest are just rares and commons. It's a very cheap deck to build. Khalim and Khalim's Prayers only being the more expensive cards in the deck. Thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you enjoy aggro, this deck is great because it has a lot of depth to it, based around your mobility, your opening hands, and kind of working out on the fly how you want to adapt situations. I feel this is probably the most interesting aggro deck in all card games, in my opinion. So yeah, this is an excellent deck if you want to play something fast, something aggressive, something that rewards skill. I definitely recommend this deck. As usual, if you like this video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, follow us on our social medias, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. Thanks again, guys, and hopefully we'll see you again in the next episode. Take care, and have a good day.